Now, the power sector operators and experts have raised concerns, expressed fears, and projected opportunities as some states assumed responsibility for regulating electricity markets within their various domains. This follows the recent revelation by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission that 7 states now control their electricity markets under the Electricity Act 2023. The states are Enugu, Ondo, Ekiti, Imo, Oyo, Edo, and Kogi. Other states, including Lagos, Ogun, Niger, and Plateau, are expected to complete their transitions between June and September. Joining us to discuss this historic shift in Nigeria's electricity governance is Nick Agule, an energy expert. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program today.
Good morning and welcome, and thank you for welcoming me on your show.
Well, Mr. Agule, when the Electricity Act 2023 was passed, it was rated as a major achievement for the Nigerian government, to the extent that states now can generate, distribute, regulate the energy sector in their various states. And so far, 7 states have done that or are doing that. 4 states have set up regulatory frameworks. 11 more, are planning to join. But we hear that there are concerns, there are fears, particularly from officials of the NERC, who are talking about the capacity of the states, who are talking about friction with the NERC that is going to lose power of regulation. Now they say the law says they will be involved in oversight. But are there certain positives about, the states being given these powers under the Electricity Act of 2023? And what are those fears? And what would you recommend?
Thank you very much, Dr. Abati. In answer to your question, I would say there are positives in the electricity sector in terms of the Electricity Act. Before the Electricity Act was signed, President Buhari had signed a constitutional amendment that took electricity out of the exclusive list and dropped it in the concurrent list. And it was as a result of that the Electricity Act was then formulated. Unfortunately, President Buhari didn't put pen to paper, but one of the first things that President Tinubu did was to sign that bill into an act. And it's a very positive one for Nigeria, because without electricity, every talk about economic development in Nigeria is just verbal postulations, because there is no history in the world, there is no country in the world that has shown that they will develop with 5,000 megawatts of electricity for 200 million people. So it is very important that this act was signed. And what is now left is that in 2 years since this act was signed, it is actually surprising that we're talking about 7 states that have now set up the regulatory framework and structures to regulate electricity in their states. We should be talking about 36 states now. If you are a state governor and you are yet to take up this Electricity Act and domesticate it in your state, then you are actually behind the times. And I can assure you that you cannot be running any economy if you don't have adequate power supply. There is no economy that develops with generators. And coming to the challenges, yes, there will be challenges, as in everything, there will be challenges. But what we are doing is not rocket science. It's something that has been there before. So there are countries that have electricity devolved to the subnationals. And a very good example is the United States of America. So the United States of America has a federal electricity regulatory commission, which is the equivalent of our own NEC. And then they have the state public utilities boards that regulate electricity in their states, in their jurisdictions. And there is clear line of delineation between these bodies. So the federal regulates electricity that is interstate, anything interstate or international. As far as electricity is concerned, the Federal Electricity Regulatory Commission handles. And anything that is intrastate, the State Electricity Public Utility Board handles. Now, so we already have a very clear case that we can study and then move forward with.
Absolutely. Now, while you're on this topic, one of the matters arising so far is that we're not really seeing the traction we expected to see with regards to the appetite for investment into energy, power generation into these individual states. So some experts are saying that collaboration may be the way to go, because even outside of electricity, you see some states can go the entire year without attracting any investment whatsoever. So some are saying that the only feasible way is that there actually needs to be collaboration, regional collaboration to a degree between the states. What's your take on that?
So the electricity market in Nigeria is a virgin market. Like I earlier said, 200 million people are depending on 5,000 megawatts of public power supply. Like I do say, anywhere you see a generating plant, like I'm in your studio here in the Transcorp Hilton, they have massive generating sets to power this hotel. That is demand for public electricity that has not been met. So anywhere you see an electricity generating set or you see a solar system or so, it is demand, effective demand. People want to buy electricity. They can't find it. That is why they resort to alternative means, because it's much more expensive for you to generate your own power than to pay for public power. So what is now left is that it's not a question of demand. Demand is there. It's for the federal government and the states to do the right things so that they can open up the space and attract the investment. I can assure you that if they open up the space, investments will be attracted. Like if you look at the federal situation, I was on this channel not long ago when we were talking about what the issues are. As we speak today, the federal government is still sitting on the transmission segment of electricity at the federal level. And so where will the investment come? Because investment can come into generation, because if you generate, transmission can carry it, can wheel it. And then of course, investment can come into distribution because they are not seeing electricity to distribute. So these are the kind of bottlenecks that needs to be unlocked. And for states, it is so important that they open up the space, because one of the things that Nigeria is blessed with is a huge abundance of energy sources. We don't lack them, both renewable sources. Yeah.
Mr. Agule, but we've opened up the sector. We've talked about investment coming in, but it's not just come. It's not today we've been opening up the sector and be talking about investment coming in. And people can actually come in, to generate, but the ecosystem is not just viable. And for the argument of, open up the transmission, I mean, we tried doing that with Manitoba Hydro. We remember how we got burnt, and we talked about national security. So all of these things, we've talked about it before. There's nothing new, but we've not achieved success. We've just doing merry-go-round as much as possible. You remember we even tried to partner with the Germans, with Siemens? What happened to that deal till date? So we've just been going merry-go-round. So it's just a talk shop. What do we do?
No, I think, yes. So what we need to do, like if I take you back to, Rufai, if I take you back to Manitoba, for instance, the people who make the case for national security, they have a case, but it's not a good case, because electricity is in the private sector, transmission is in the private sector elsewhere. It's in the private sector in the US, it's in the private sector in the UK. And let me say one thing. In Nigeria, telecommunications is in the private sector. If we put it side by side, to me, telecommunication has a bigger security risk to this country than even transmission. Because as we speak today, the president is speaking to his its ministers and to security chiefs using a private sector provided funds. So to me, is that not a bigger security exposure? But for any security exposure, you consider that as a risk, and then you have a risk management framework around it. That is why we have regulation. So this conversation that transmission is a security risk and we continue to keep it in government control with no funding, and the thing has constituted a bottleneck and it's been sitting there for ages. Generation can't do anything, distribution can't do anything because transmission, as the MD told us one time, some of the equipment are over 50 years old. So that is the kind of thing. And then when you come to the states, this is a new thing for the states. So they haven't done this before. But what they need to do is to quickly generate the expertise. They don't need to develop their own expertise. There is expertise already. Like they can go to NEC and get expertise and bring them to the states so that they can open up the space. Like I was talking about renewable energy. One of the greatest things that has happened to Nigeria is that anywhere in Nigeria you go now, there are renewable energy sources. You have the water bodies, you have the wind, and you have the solar. So the states can actually forget about transmission. They can have what you call mini grids, generate and supply, or they can have microgrids, which you can then put into transmission if you have the capacity.
All right, Mr. Nick Agule, all these proposed solutions we've discussed before, but let's hope that these states will be able to make good use of the Electricity Act 2023. Thank you so much for your time today.